Good afternoon, everybody. You guys lucked out. This is certainly going to be the best out of the two Certification 101 sessions. Because the other one at 10 o'clock this morning, I certainly did not have enough caffeine in me. So this is going to be much better. My name is David Alfasi, and welcome to Certification 101. In this session, we're going to be talking about everything that you need to know certification-wise. So we're going to talk about what's related to certification here at Ignite. We're going to talk about your own certification paths, the benefits of certifications, learning resources for certifications, what's new and upcoming in terms of new certifications that are coming out. How are the certification program working and what are the different levels of certifications that we have. We'll talk about the exams. We'll go into the specific exams and the mechanics of the exams. How are they built? What kind of a thought process you need to get into. And then we'll talk also about some learning resources and different ways that you can get ready for taking the certification exams. So that's kind of our agenda for the day. I work for a company called NetLogon, and my role is to do certification. And what that means is that I actually work on building a lot of certification exams, and I work with Microsoft Learning and other technology companies in helping them build their certification exams. And I live and breathe certifications. I really love it. So I know that's weird. I accept that. So let's start with Ignite. Here at Ignite, we have a tremendous amount of resources for you in terms of certification, and both in people helping you, in discounts, in tools, mechanisms, different things that really you can use that there is really no other place or no other gathering that Microsoft has where we have that many resources together that will help you towards certification. So let's start off with the MCT ambassadors. We have 20 MCT ambassadors here at Ignite. An MCT ambassador is a Microsoft certified trainer, which means it's somebody that deals with certification and the technologies behind the certifications all year round. They train people on these products, and they sit in rooms with groups, virtual rooms or physical rooms with groups of attendees who want to learn about various products. We've selected the MCT ambassadors to be here based on their technical focus. So some of them are Azure, some of them are Office 365, some of them are infrastructure, some of them are developers, some are SharePoint. We'll forgive the ones that are SharePoint. And they all have different specialties, and based on their specialties, they've been selected to help you. So they can help you in terms of identifying what's going to be the right path, which exams you need to take, how do you get ready for those exams, or if you have an actual technical issue of a process that is being tested in an exam that you're not sure about, they can help you on that technical aspect as well. Some of the MCT ambassadors are also presenters here at the event in breakout sessions that are called certification exam prep sessions. And what those sessions are, they're deep technical content sessions that will actually dive into the topics that are focusing on a specific exam. So we have 19 of them, and we've selected 19 exams that are quite popular that people here at Ignite may want to take. And we have those 1-hour sessions that covers all of the topics that are in that exam. Now you can guess that we cannot go deep on every single topic in the exam, but we go deep in the topics that are either least understood or more complex or really interesting to focus on. And we cover a little bit every topic of the exam. So at least you can identify everything that's being covered in the exam and be able to spot your gaps of knowledge, be able to spot what you need to work on the most in order to get ready to actually go and take the exam. So those breakout sessions, the exam prep sessions are available in the schedule builder, and you can add them to your calendar as well. Also here at Ignite, we have 50% off every certification exam that you take. So you can go ahead and go to our location, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later on, and you can register for an exam right away. You don't need to do it in advance, and we'll book you a seat, and you can go ahead and take the exam, and it's 50% off, which means it's about $70 or $75 off of the regular rate, which is the US-based rate. As well, we have the ability to give you a discount if you want to take an exam for 4 weeks after Ignite. You can get a discount of 40%. And in order to go through that mechanism, you're going to come and talk to us at our area. We'll just have to text a special code, and then you'll get a discount code for 40% off your certification exam or your next certification exam. One other great resource that we have here is Measure Up practice test. What's the best way to get ready for a certification exam than actually take a practice test that looks like, feels like, doesn't smell like, but has all the mechanisms of the actual live exam. So you actually take a practice test, it's got content that's very similar to the live exam, except that it's made to resemble the exam. And based on you taking that practice test and the score that you get at the end, you'll get a better idea whether or not you're ready to go ahead and take your certification exam. So Measure Up practice test exams are a great resource that you can take here at Ignite. Normally, based on the exam, there can be anywhere from $100 to $300 for those practice tests, and they're all free here at Ignite this week. And in order to take them, you will want to come to Cert Central. Now, Cert Central is at the Hyatt on the second story. So if some of you went to registration at Hyatt, it's right above that. Or if you're going to go to the immersion zone, which is the main area at the Hyatt where you'll find the hands-on labs and other resources there, we're right next to that. It's called Certification Central. And if you go to Certification Central, we have 3 primary rooms there. One of them is our testing center, so that's where you take the exam. Next to that, we have our study hall, and our study hall is a room where you're going to be able to take practice tests. So it's a quiet room. You'll be able to launch the practice test and sit there without anybody bothering you. You can sit there all day if you want. We've got enough seats, hopefully, for everyone. And then we also have an exam prep room, which is actually where we run our certification exam prep sessions. So all of those are at the Hyatt. Come and see us. Now, by the way, at any point, if somebody has questions, we're not going to be very formal here. Just raise your hands.
Sorry,
yes. It's at the Hyatt on the 2nd floor, right above the immersion zone. Yes?
Is that open today at all?
Unfortunately, it opens tomorrow. And it's open tomorrow right after the keynote. So you'll notice that at Ignite, nothing is available during the keynote. After the keynote is when everything starts. So at 12:30 is when we open. And we are open tomorrow until about 5 o'clock. And then after that, every day from 7:30 to 6, except Friday where we close at 3, I believe. So now let's talk a little bit about the certification program. And I'm going to ask you, raise your hand please here if you actually have taken a Microsoft certification exam before. All right, most of the room here. Now, those of you who raised your hand, please keep your hand up and tell me, any of you have taken a certification exam in the last 2 years? Keep your hand up. All right, about half of you, great. So certification has changed a lot through the years. And you know, whether you're certified on Windows Server 2016, Windows Server 2012, 2008, 2003, 2000, NT40, I can keep on going. I took my first certification in 1996 on Windows 95. That's 21 years ago, and since then there's been many more. You too, sir, 1995? That was a great exam. That was very difficult. We talked about the Win16 mutex and all these other fun things that I only remember by name. So certification and the certification program has changed a lot through the years, and there's been many exams. But there's one thing that has always been a constant, and that is that if you take one exam, you become a Microsoft certified professional. As soon as you take your first exam, you become an MCP. Now, one exam is all it takes, and what exam does it take? Well, any exam. Any exam that is a qualifying exam for the MCSA, MCSE, or MCSD certifications. And we'll talk about those in a minute. So any MCP exam will get you that Microsoft Certified Professional designation. If you take a second exam, you will become an MCSA, Microsoft Certified Solutions Associate. So we've simplified these tracks. These tracks have become much more simple, where to become an MCSA, to have that middle tier certification of an MCSA, to represent your knowledge as someone who actually uses the technology, implements, configures, manages technology, you have the MCSA designation, which typically requires 2 exams, sometimes 3, depending on the MCSA. The primary example of that is the Windows Server certifications. The 2012 and the 2016 certifications require 3 exams. Most of the other MCSAs will require only 2 exams. The minimum requirement that we're looking at for an MCSA is somebody that has 1 or 2 years experience with that technology. And this is sometimes something that gets confusing. People think, oh, I've been in IT for 1-2 years, but have you been working with Office 365 for 1 or 2 years? That is the type of expertise that we're looking for. And that is the minimum qualified requirement in terms of the individual when you can expect to take a test. That is what we're looking for. We're looking for somebody who has this amount of expertise, who's been working with the technology, who has been studying on the technology, and who has that amount of experience. So the MCSA, you've got your MCSA. It's really about the how. Most of the questions that you get in the exams that are related to MCSA is really about the how. How do you manipulate and manage this technology? And then you're ready to move on to the next, the top tier level certification, which is the MCSE, Microsoft Certified Solutions Expert. By the way, this is the same tier as MCSD for developers. And that only requires 1 more exam. This is more about the why and the when. So typically the MCSE questions or level exams are exams that will focus on multiple technologies coexisting together, having large-scale implementations that are much more complex, that require much more information about the environment so that you can evaluate and synthesize the information and come up with a recommendation of a solution. So it's less about the how, and it's more about the why and the when that technology should be implemented. The MCSE exams, typically we're looking at somebody who has 3 to 5 years experience. And again, it's just that 1 additional exam that you need to take if you've already got your MCSA. Additionally, there's a new functionality or option that you have in the MCSA is the ability to recertify. Now this causes a lot of confusion. Sometimes people ask me, well, I'm certified. Why would I want to certify again? This sounds like a lot of pain. Well, think about how the ecosystem of the technologies work these days. And you guys are here. Maybe you'll attend some Azure sessions. Maybe you'll attend some Office 365 sessions. When I first started working with Azure, and if you look at Azure today, it's completely different. So if somebody tells you, well, I'm an MCSA on Azure, it's not actually called MCSA on Azure, but it's called the MCSA Cloud Platform. But let's say he tells you, I'm an MCSA on Azure. Be like, well, when did you become certified? Well, I'm an MCSA on Azure in 2015. But now it's 2018. Azure in 2018, completely different than your Azure in 2015. So you can recertify each year, and every time you recertify, there will be a year that is assigned. So MCSE, Cloud Platform and Infrastructure, earned in 2016. MCSE, Cloud Platform and Infrastructure, earned in 2017. And that will differentiate you from other individuals that have that maybe out-of-date certification. So note that this is not a requirement. This is an optional recertification. So more of a benefit than something that you have to do. All right? So how to keep current. Again, you have the option to recertify each year, and each year that you recertify, you will get that additional year entry that will be in your transcript. And this process actually replaces a previous process that we had, which was a recertification requirement. So if you've been in the program for a while, you know that we used to require people to recertify. This is no longer the case. This is now this optional recertification. All right. So now let's take a look at the certification paths. And there are several certification paths. And the first slide I'm going to put up here may scare you off a little bit. I'm going to simplify it. It's really not all that complicated. And then we're going to break it down path by path. Okay? So these are the various certification paths. I told you it was going to scare you a little bit. It is on the website. It has been slightly updated. So what you see here, every dot that you see represents an MCSA. Every rectangle that you see at the end of the page represents an MCSE. You move through one or another MCSA, and then you get to your MCSE. What I mean by that is that if you look at the green line, the second line, which is the Cloud Platform and Infrastructure path, to get to that MCSE, you actually have multiple options of MCSAs. You could have an MCSA on Windows Server 2016, or you could have an MCSA on Windows Server 2012. or on cloud, Azure, or on Linux on Azure. So you have these various MCSA options to reach your MCSE. You don't have to do all of them. If you want, you can, but you don't have to. You only need to have one MCSA in that track in order to earn your MCSE. So let's take a look at these paths. The first one, I call it the Windows 10 path, but it's really called the mobility path. I call it the Windows 10 path because it's primarily Windows 10 technology is the one that's covered in it. The mobility path has 2 exams that are required for your MCSA, 697, 698. Those exams are all about configuring, installing, implementing, managing. Remember, it's all about the how. So those exams will test you on your ability to manage, to use, to configure, to troubleshoot the technology that's being tested on, in this case, Windows 10. Then you take one elective. Now in this pool, we don't have a lot of electives, mainly because 2 of them are retiring, so that means they're going to be gone fairly soon. And so there's going to be one elective available left, which is 695, deploying Windows desktops and enterprise applications. You'll see in the other paths we have many more electives, so many more of those options. Yes, sir? Yeah, so typically when you look at an exam, you will see a retirement date if a retirement has been announced. Usually we won't tell you that, hey, it's going to retire in 2 months. We'll usually give you 9 months, a year and a half sometimes, letting you know when that technology will be retired. So there's usually no surprises when something gets retired. We know well in advance. Microsoft doesn't really retire exams that often. There's cycles where usually they'll retire 3, 4, or 5 exams at the same date. So they wait and they do them in batches. So it's a lot simpler that way. The next path is the cloud platform and infrastructure path. So this would be your on-prem server path. Okay? As well, you have the options of Azure. So what's great about this path is that it's really targeted towards IT pros that are managing IT infrastructure, whether they are in Azure, whether those resources are in Azure, or those resources are on-prem. So here you have your MCSAs on Windows 12, Windows Server 2012, or Windows Server 2016. Note that if you are with MCSA Windows Server 2008 or 2012, you just have to take one exam to upgrade your MCSA to Windows Server 2016. And it's not listed there because it's an upgrade exam or a jump exam, we call it. It's exam 743. Is this updated on the website? Yes. This is all. If it hasn't been updated yet today, it's very, very shortly. Some of this information we're just announcing this weekend. And I'm going to get to... Yeah, some of this information that's in here is brand new. And actually, the ones that are the most brand new are related to the Azure track. As you guys know, Azure moves very quickly. There are always new functionality and new features. And the exams on Azure are refreshed very frequently to reflect those changes in the product. But as well, we have new exams that are being introduced on Azure. You might have heard of Azure Stack. So we have an exam 70-537 on Azure Stack that will be released either in December or January of next year. So this is being announced. And we have 2 more exams on Azure, one on Azure DevOps, which is an elective in the elective pool there, exam 538, and one exam on Linux workloads on Azure, which is exam 539. So exam 538 and 539 will be available at some point in 2018. We don't know exactly when yet, but it will be in 2018 that those 2 exams will be available. But 537, the Azure Stack, that one will be available by latest January 2018. So if you want to be an MCSA Azure, and I'm simplifying by saying MCSA Azure, but it's called the MCSA Cloud Platform. If you want to have that designation, you can take 2 out of 4 exams, 2 out of 4. So you have there 532, 533, 534, or 537. 532, that's the dev exam. So if you're a developer and you're developing applications in Azure, that's the one you want to take. If you're an infrastructure person, you're managing VMs, networking in Azure, you're managing cloud services, you're managing different components in Azure that are related to the infrastructure, then 533 is the exam for you. If you're an infrastructure person or you're a developer, you can then take 534, which is the architecture exam, which is more about the why of how things are implemented in Azure, architecting Azure. Or you can take the new exam that will be coming up, which is the Azure Stack. So as an IT pro, you have a little bit more options because you've got the Azure Stack and you've got 534 along with 533. As a developer, your path would likely be 532 and then 534. And I've actually outlined these paths in this slide here. This is the path recommended for the IT pro, and this is the path recommended for a DevOps person. So if you're DevOps, 538 will be your elective. All right, so Azure certification paths, we have many options, and I'm just going to go back to this slide here that lists all of the electives. If you want to move on from that MCSA to your MCSE, this is your list of elective pools. You only need one. Okay? You only need one. You can take more. You're free to take more exams for sure, but you only need to take one. Right? Some of these are brand new. Some of them are just being announced and unavailable yet. But you have some great exams that are there. Some of them focus on big data. Some of them focus on security, such as the Windows Server 2016 security exam. Some of them focus on machine learning related to Azure. So there's a lot of various electives, depending on where your expertise is, that you can go ahead and take. So that's cloud platform and infrastructure path. Next up, we have the productivity path. So productivity path, also very heavy on Windows Server on-prem, but we also have the Office 365 path in there. Now, the Office 365 MCSA has been around for a while, and Office 365, just like Azure, is consistently changing. There's one thing for sure about Office 365 is that it gets updated again and again and again, new features, new functionalities coming out all the time. And the result of that is that Microsoft consistently keeps up with those changes in the technology in the exam. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on, but you can see when an exam has been refreshed to see that there's actually new content in that exam and to see that it reflects the changes in Office 365. Yes, sir? So the question is, how many exams does it take for MCSE messaging? First of all, no such thing as MCSE messaging anymore. Now we have MCSE productivity, and MCSE productivity will require a total of 3 exams. 2 exams for your MCSA, and you have the choice of MCSA 2012 server, MCSA 2016 server, or MCSA Office 365. And then 1 exam as an elective. And that is your elective pool. And in your elective pool, if you look at that list of electives over there, you'll notice that it's mostly on-prem messaging products, right? So you've got SharePoint. Sorry, it hurts me whenever I say that word. SharePoint, Skype for Business Server, and Exchange. Okay? And so you take any one of those, and then you can achieve your MCSE. So again, a total of 3 exams. Yes, sir? So the question is, if I have a Windows Server 2008 MCSA, how do I get to the next level? And there is an upgrade exam, which is exam 70-743, that will upgrade your MCSA to an MCSA Windows Server 2016. So 1 exam, you get to MCSA Server 2016, then you take 1 electives, and you've got your MCSE on productivity. So you will require a total of 2 exams. All right? Yes, sir? So if you're starting from scratch today and you want to get the MCSE productivity, you can either take 3 or 4 exams. 3 exams if you go the Office 365 path. 4 exams if you take one of the Windows Server paths. So then your follow-up question might be, well, which one should I do? Office 365 or Windows Server? And then my answer to that would be, it depends. It depends what you do for a living. Do you manage Office 365 tenants, or do you deploy Windows Server 2016 servers? And that's really what makes the difference. The certification is there to represent what your knowledge and your expertise is. So if your knowledge and expertise is in Office 365, you'll have 3 exams. If it's in Windows Server 2016, you'll have 4. If it's in both, well, you're lucky and you got the choice. Or you can take both. You can do both MCSAs and then go ahead and just get the MCSE with 1 elective. Yes, sir. Yes. So the question is, if I've already passed exam 345, which is the exam on Exchange Server 2016, and now I take the exams that give me my MCSA, do I need to do them in a specific order? And the answer to that is no, there's no order. You can take them in any order. So actually what's really cool is that if you have already passed 345 and you go ahead and pass 346 and 347, which are your 2 MCSA exams, right away you'll get the MCSA and the MCSE the same day. There is no order. You can take them in any order. So at any order that you take your exams, as soon as you meet those qualification requirements for the certification, it will pop up in your transcript. Okay? Now, there's one path that probably has the most MCSA options, and that's data management and analytics. If you're a SQL person and you manage SQL databases and data platforms, this is the one for you. However, it also includes all of our data science paths, our machine learning path, our BI paths, our reporting paths. There is a lot to the data management and analytics certification. So to get that MCSE, you have a choice of several MCSAs, and they are quite different because they go anywhere from querying T-SQL commands, T-SQL queries, and managing SQL databases on-prem, all the way to implementing R server or managing visualizations with Power BI. So you have various paths, and again, it depends on your expertise, your specialization, what it is that you do. So if your expertise is data visualization with Power BI and Excel, well, we've got 2 exams for you, and you take those 2 exams, you have your MCSA. You take another elective, and you've got your MCSE in data management and analytics. Yes, sir? So if you take exam 761 and 762, you get your MCSA on SQL 2016 database development. So you have 1 MCSA. 762 is also an elective for the MCSA. Absolutely. So if you have another MCSA, let's say that you have MCSA on SQL 2016 BI development, right? And you also take 762, which is part of the MCSA for another track, then you will get your MCSE because it is both there and an elective. But if I just get 761 and 762, I won't. That's right. So if an exam both appears in an MCSA track and it appears as an elective, it doesn't count twice. So the 1 exam will not give you double credit, essentially. You need to take a 3rd exam. Okay? So there is some duplication where some exams are in an MCSA path and are also elective, but it means that they are not electives for themselves. They're an elective for another track. Okay? The goal is to have a more broad representation of your skills, and that's why it works that way. Oh, so good question. So the gentleman is asking, how do I decide which one of these exams is going to apply to me, right? So which one should I take? And we'll look at a little bit later on in the presentation what's included in each exam. So we'll let you know. You can't use just the title because sometimes the titles don't give you the full picture. So we have to look at exactly what technology is included in each exam. And I'll show you how to figure that out in a few minutes. Yes, sir.
Let's say I have the MCSA.
Yes.
And I want to take one of the electives.
Yes.
If I wait till January, will my certificate say 2018?
I'm sorry, I don't think I understood your question.
Because if I take the elective in 2017,
Yes.
the certificate will say 2017.
Mm-hmm.
But if I wait 1 month, it will be 2018, right?
Yes, so when your certification is earned, so when you meet all of the requirements of the certification, that's when the date is populated. So even if you took the elective 2 years ago, and now you're taking the other exams, that's the date that you earned the certification, and that's when it appears. Did I understand right? Yeah, okay. Okay, so that's the data management analytics path. Now there is a new path that has been announced that is not available yet, which is the Azure database development. So what's interesting about this path is that you have on-premises SQL Server, but you also have SQL Server in Azure. You also have cloud platform solutions, and you also have all the infrastructure that supports all of the machine learning components in Azure. Okay? So you're really building from on-prem database solutions all the way to the supporting infrastructures for the machine learning solutions, to actual machine learning solutions and data visualizations of those solutions as well. So everything that's related to managing, visualizing, and storing data is all in these paths, along with the developer aspects to them as well. So here are some recommendations of progressions. So for example, if you want to go into a role or represent a role of data management analytics, 773 is an R exam or R server exam. Then you can go into cloud data science with Azure machine learning, which again builds on the existing knowledge of R server and analyzing that data, and then taking an elective that can be Azure Big Data or managing the data as well in Azure. So all of those exams all have a related theme, and they all can progress on each other. And we've got these paths of recommendation of progression. Now, these recommendation of progressions, again, are not a requirement. You can take these exams in any order you want. But we're just recommending, if you're going to learn those technologies in order to get yourself certified, this is the logical path that you should take. If you're a developer, the paths have not changed as much. Even though we've kept up to date with the latest versions of Visual Studio, C# has not been reinvented every 6 months like Azure is. HTML5 has not been recreated in the last 2 years. So a lot of the concepts that are being tested on are similar to the concepts that were tested on several years ago. What changes sometimes is some of the UI or some of the added functionalities that are available through Visual Studio. So MCSA web applications or Universal Windows Platform are your two MCSAs. Note that there are several exams that are being retired, mostly around SharePoint 2013 and TFS, Team Foundation Services. All right? Oh, sorry. There is also here the realization that we have these new exams on Azure that are being released, and one of those applies to this track, which is the DevOps. So managing, and this is the first exam that we have that deals really with DevOps, exam 538, again, that will be released in 2018, so this year. So we're talking about all these paths, and we need to remember that a certification path is there to give you a tool to identify yourself, to differentiate yourself from other individuals. It is clear that an exam and a certification alone, a career will not make. Okay? This is not what's going to make your career, is to just have a certification. A career is made of two elements, in my opinion: experience and certification. Certification comes to reinforce that experience, comes to demonstrate that experience to both your peers, your employers, your coworkers, everybody that's around you. You're showing a certain effort in both yourself, your knowledge, and your career. And those are part of the gains. I talk about those as the gains of certification. And I look at gains of certification as being in 4 different areas. And 2 of them are pretty obvious, and I'll talk about them in a couple of minutes, but they're relatively obvious. Gains for the individual and gains for the career, right? So there's benefits for you and there's benefits for your career. But there's also gains for your employers. And this is something that we're seeing more and more. The employers are looking for individuals that are being certified because it also gives them that peace of mind. It gives them the calmness of knowing that that individual has been tested, validated, and certified by a third party that their knowledge is up to par. Now, what's up to par? It means that it meets the minimum requirements. It meets the minimum requirements as someone who is qualified to manage my network, deploy my infrastructure, build my apps. Employers want to have that. The community gains also because we also find that individuals who are certified are more likely to help others. Maybe in technology, maybe in their own certification goals, maybe in attaining higher levels of certification or higher levels of community service. So we find that people who are more certified or have that certification tool in their toolbox do that. And one of those reasons is because they have more individual confidence. They have more confidence in themselves. I can think that I know something, but now somebody else says, hey, you really do know something. And that changes it up. That changes it up from me just assuming that I'm smart to somebody else saying that I'm smart. And that makes a difference. I gain more knowledge. A lot of people find that going through the process of getting certified actually helps you understand a lot better what you thought you knew all along. So I see a list of 30 topics. These 30 topics are tested in the exam. Well, I'm really good at about 22 of them because I do them every day. So there's 8 of them that, in my job, we either don't use that technology, nobody is really interested in having it, or we have a third-party product that replaces that functionality. So I really don't deal with those 8 things. Well, if I want to pass the exam, I'm likely going to go and study them. So I've just expanded my knowledge just by going through the process of getting certified. Okay? That knowledge also will be deeper because all of a sudden I may know some things at the surface. I may go ahead and implement DNS servers and have that replicated DNS zone configured 20 times. But I don't really know how often that replication occurs and what happens when there's a conflict and what are the intricate dealings of that replication technology. Well, if I want to get certified, I may actually have deeper knowledge on that just because, hey, they might ask me a question about that. So I might want to be ready. So I've increased my knowledge just by the process of going through certification. I'm going to inspire others also. As soon as they're going to see me study, they're going to get intimidated because they're going to realize I'm going to be the smartest guy in the room, and nobody wants somebody else to be the smartest guy in the room. I'm going to have some gains from my career, and gains from my career are going to be a lot about demonstrating that I'm taking initiative. And those are going to be demonstrating to my employer that I have greater initiative, that I'm taking my career seriously, that I'm the go-to guy when it comes to this technology. If you've got questions on Exchange Server, I'm the guy that you're coming to. And because I've mastered and I've gone in deep on this product. It really does set you apart from everybody else in terms of working in a team where you have different people that all work with the same technology, have the same experience, but some are certified and some are not, and that really does make a difference. And this is an industry recognition, there's no question about it. So beyond everything that we're talking about, the gains of helping others and being smart and feeling better about ourselves, of course, there's also those non-altruistic ways of representation, which is financial. It's clear that individuals who are certified gain more than people who do not. One way that you can represent those skills that you've just attained, their certification that you just attained, is by using badges. So badges have been introduced about 2 years ago by Microsoft. And basically, through the badges, you can put them with your LinkedIn profile. You can add them to a business card. Badging is a great way to identify those skills that you have. And they will appear automatically as soon as you attain a certain level of certification. Now, I did some searches on LinkedIn, and one of the things that I noticed right away is there's about 4,600 jobs related to cloud experts, and badges is a great way to filter through those. And a lot of those individuals that are posting jobs are associated them to certain levels of certification. So it's clear that badging, as they're being used in LinkedIn and other job site tools, is very useful, and again, another method of differentiate yourself from others. So next up now is I want to talk about the certification exams. The exams themselves are quite, some are more difficult than others, and it really depends on which technology and your level of comfort and what your level of knowledge is. But I want to make sure that you understand some key aspects about the certification exams. First of all, there's different types of exams out there, and they really differentiate by levels of certification. There's 2 levels of certification I didn't talk about here because you guys don't apply to those. Microsoft Office Specialist is people who are certified in Word and Excel and PowerPoint. Usually people who come to Ignite are not interested in that. MTA, Microsoft Technology Associate, also people who come to Ignite are not interested in this level of certification. This is typically in the academic field. People are just coming into technology, basics of operating system, basics of security, basics of networking, what's a protocol, what's a router, things like that. That's MTA level certification. And then we go into MCSA, MCSE. We're way beyond that in terms of the amount of knowledge we expect you to have and the amount of experience we expect you to have. And so you'll have different types of questions. You can have multiple choice questions. About half of the questions you'll encounter in an exam will be multiple choice. Then you'll have questions where you have various steps that you need to pick 3 steps from a list of 8 steps, and then you need to put them in order. In which order do they need to occur? Then you can have questions where you need to pick things from a drop-down list. So you have a drop-down list. How many servers should you implement in the New York office, in the Miami office, in the Toronto office? And you have a drop-down list with 2, 4, 6, 8, 12 servers based on the information in the question. You have drag and drop questions where you take items from the left and drop them on the right. Maybe it's servers, and then you're dropping them into various offices. Maybe it's technologies, and you implement technologies into various Azure regions. Maybe it's words of products that you're building sentences with them. So there's various types of questions that you can encounter. A great or interesting type of question that I like to see also is graphic interpretation. You may have a PowerShell output, a network diagram, and an Active Directory users and computers snapshot of the UI. And you have these 3 graphics, and then you have a question, based on this, will user 1 be able to access share 1? You need to deduce, based on the information that we provide you, how the network is configured and what will happen if this user connects to that server. Okay? So these are graphic interpretations. So we have different types of questions. If it's been a while that you haven't taken a certification exam, you might have been used to multiple choice exams. Those are no longer the norm. We have various types of questions. Most MCSE exams also will include case studies. Now, a case study is a large scenario about an environment where you find out everything you need to know about the company. How many servers does it have? How many users? How many departments? Where are their offices? What is the speed of their network links? What are their overarching business goals? What are their technical requirements? What are their budget requirements? What does the CEO think about the whole migration to Windows 10? You find out all of this information, and then based on this information, you're going to have short questions. You're going to have short questions that ask you, so which operating system you're going to have to put on? How many servers you're going to deploy? Which messaging system solution you're going to implement? You have these short questions that all relate back to this case study, which is kind of like what a consultant goes through when he goes into an environment, and you go into an environment and you encounter all of this information, and you have to sift through it to find what's relevant to make recommendations. Well, that's what a case study is. So you'll have case study questions as well. Now, what's interesting, yes, sir?
So are the exams still grading basically with the binary? Like, are they still grading right or wrong?
Are they grading right or wrong? Yeah, so in terms of partial marks and things like that, I'll get to that too. Hold that thought. I will get to that. So one way to kind of help you when you're looking at the questions is to understand that questions are kind of built the same way. They have the identical same anatomy. Now, I've broken that down as the anatomy of a question because I find that if you look at questions looking for that anatomy, you're going to find it a lot easier to look for the relevant information in the questions. So what is the question of an anatomy of a question? First, every question will always have a business problem. Now, the business problem will provide you information about the environment and a general goal. For example, you have 10 Azure SQL databases. You plan to migrate to a Azure data warehouse. That's an overarching goal. I haven't told you exactly what you need to do. I'm telling you this is more or less what you plan on doing. Taking your 10 Azure SQL databases and turning them into a data warehouse. By the way, I'm not a SQL guy, so this may not be possible. I'm giving a random example. And hopefully a SQL guy in here is not telling me that I'm sounding really weird. Then you will have a goal statement. Now what's cool about the goal statement is that it always starts with the same 3 words. You need to. You need to ensure that the Azure SQL Data Warehouse is redundant across 3 regions. You need to do something. That you need to statement will always relate back to the next component, which is your correct answer. Your correct answer will always relate back to that you need to statement. So you have 10 Azure SQL databases. You need to implement this Azure Data Warehouse across 3 regions. What should you do? Correct answer. And of course, we've got incorrect answers in order to make it more fun and to distract you a little bit. We call those distractors. So you have, you need to, and then your answer. And that answer will always relate to that you need to statement. That you need to statement is the most important question, the sentence in your question. Everything else in that question relates and supports that you need to statement. So that's what you need to own into. And that leads me into the next point, which is probably the most important thing that I want to tell you about the certification exams, is that they're not tricky. They're not designed to be tricky. We don't want you to fail. We actually want you to pass if you're qualified. If you're unqualified, we want you to fail. You see, when we develop an exam, we have 2 primary goals. First primary goal is that if you're unqualified, you must fail. But my other primary goal is that if you are qualified, you must pass. If you are qualified and you fail, then I've failed at building a good exam. Okay? So it's very important for people who are qualified to pass the exam. So thinking about that, if you're reading a question and you feel like you're pretty knowledgeable on Azure SQL data warehouses and you're looking at A and you're like, yeah, it's A. Of course it's A. Then you'll be like, wait a second, that's too easy. I knew it was A right away. So then you start overthinking. Wait, maybe they're tricking me into thinking it's A, but it's really C because maybe they're not telling me that the Azure is already implemented in 6 regions. So there could be 6 regions. I need to break it down to 3. Yeah, it's definitely not A because A is too easy. It's got to be C. Well, no. We're not trying to trick you. If A really seems obvious to you because you're really proficient in that technology, then it's a question that's easy to you. Then great. It's easy for you to pick A out of the 4 answers. That's great. You got it right. Move on to the next question. All right? So we're not trying to trick you. That is a very important point of the certification exams. One error that I found in my slides here is that we no longer have choose all that apply questions. So you will not see those, but you'll see other types of questions. And one of those that I didn't mention before is short answer code. If you've taken the T-SQL exam before, in the T-SQL exam, we have these questions where you actually need to finish a T-SQL query. So you're actually typing out the T-SQL query in the question. So that's pretty cool. And a little bit more of that interaction. We also have another item type that is called the extended matching. Extended matching means that you have 8 answer choices, and those 8 answer choices are the same for 5 questions. So you get 5 questions with the same answer choices. Okay? And so we're repeating those answer choices. You can expect to have the same ones, and you just get different questions that refer back. So those are called extended matching questions. Case study, this is what a case study will look like, where you have, again, a lot of information about the environment. It's broken down into sections, such as technical background, technical requirements, business requirements, and all of those sections have buttons on the left-hand side, so you can navigate easily to those various sections. And by the way, each question will tell you, you need to recommend a messaging solution to meet the technical requirements, to meet the business requirements, so that you can go back and click on that button and read again those specific requirements. Drag and drop questions, again, you drop from the left into the right. Sometimes it's objects, sometimes it's words. Hot area question. A hot area question is where you've got a graphical interface. It's usually a screenshot, and you've got to pick something from that interface to answer the question. So for example, here, if I'm looking on that screen, I want to create a new Excel workbook. What do I need to click on? And then it would be the File button, right? So you would have this interface that would be essentially active, and you'd have to click on the various interfaces in order to select where you would navigate next or where you would go to. This is not an emulation. That means when you click on File, nothing is going to happen except highlight the File button, but nothing else. It's not a full interactive button. Short answer code, I mentioned before, if you're doing a T-SQL exam, for example, you would be able to complete your T-SQL commands. Now, some basics of the certification exam. Most exams have 40 to 60 questions. Some exams will give you up to 4 hours to complete. Those are beta exams, are available by invitation only. All questions are worth 1 point unless if you're told otherwise. So when you take an exam question, you will actually see, and this refers back to your question, sir, every question you will be told, nothing. It won't tell you how many points it gives you, because it's all worth 1 point. Every question is worth the same, it's worth 1 point. In some cases, you will have questions where you need to answer multiple elements, and there's a lot more to the question. And then we will have, in bold, a statement that will say, note, this question is worth more than 1 point. So you will know. So assume 1 point unless we've told you otherwise. And now comes for a kind of a confusing element for a lot of people is the passing score. Now, every exam has the same passing score, 700. The only thing is that 700 doesn't mean the same thing for every exam. So it's a weighted score. So Microsoft doesn't actually tell you that you need 55% to pass this exam, or you need 85% to pass that exam. The pass score is not published. We don't provide that information. However, we will tell you what score you got based on that 700. So if you got 900, you know you did well above the 700 requirement. If you got 300, you got well below the 700 requirement. But 700 is a weighted number that means something different for every single exam. So some exam is 55, some exam is 75% to pass. The pass score is determined by Microsoft using a team of subject matter experts that together work in identifying what that minimum score should be. Okay? And that minimum score is based on technical experts saying, hey, in order to be proficient with this technology, you need to at least know these 45 out of 55 questions. These 35 out of 55 questions, whatever that number is, based on the difficulty of the question and based on the requirements of the role of the individual that we expect to be able to pass that exam. Okay? So you will only see 700. Don't expect to see anything else. Don't read too much into it like somehow it's 70%. It's not. It may be, maybe it is, maybe it's not. We don't know. So if you go and take an exam, typically you'll take that at a Pearson testing center. You'll have to bring an ID. You can't bring your phone in. It's a closed book exam. It's not an open book exam. And of course, you securely store everything. And by the way, this is what we're doing here at Ignite. So if you take in Microsoft certification exam at Ignite, you will have to bring an ID. We'll take all your stuff aside, put it in a closed, secure locker, and you'll go and take a closed book exam. Actually, what we're doing here is we're doing bring your own device. So you'll actually use your laptop. You'll open up a secure browser, and you'll be using your own laptop in our testing center. So you'll be in our testing center using your own laptop. If you don't have a laptop, which is possible, but if you don't have a laptop, or if somebody's taken your laptop, or if your laptop's broken, we have spare machines there for you to use as well. Okay? Another way of taking an exam, though, is doing it at home. And I'm not talking about at Ignite here. I'm just talking about in general. You could take your exam at home. And this is something that's relatively new for Microsoft. It's a home proctored exam. And in order for you to take your exam at home, there's a few specific requirements that you have. For example, there needs to be a video camera. There can't be any additional monitors around. You have to be alone in the room. And you have to show that on the camera that you're alone in the room. So there's a specific process. And then a proctor watches you to make sure that you're not cheating or that somebody's not helping you to take the exam. But there is that process which is very valuable for people who live very far away from a testing center or who want to take all the exams from the comfort of their own home. Okay? During the exam, don't panic, stay relaxed. Remember, there is no negative points. So maybe that answers your question also, is that there are no negative points. You don't get points removed for getting a question wrong. So if you don't know, take a guess. You won't lose anything for it. Now, learning resources. The first and most important resource to get ready for an exam, and I want to make this very clear, is hands-on experience. Nothing will replace hands-on experience. Get your experience by using the product, breaking the product, troubleshooting the product, implementing, and doing it all over again. This is the best way to get ready for an exam. But it may not cover everything, and you will need supplemental knowledge, supplemental training, and that's what the resources are. Sorry, somebody had their hand up? Yes?
Are the current generation of exams adaptive, as in you will get this
Nope.
question because you answered the previous question this way?
Nope. So an adaptive exam is an exam where a question will branch out based on the results of previous questions. And no, Microsoft does not do adaptive exams. The exam that you get is downloaded on the machine that you take the exam from at the moment when you log on. And so from the moment you start your first question, all your questions have been predetermined already. Yes, sir.
Case study example, multiple questions in one case study, and you can't go back. But is that case study one question in the exam, so you get all of those in that row, right? Or is each question single?
Okay, so the question is about a case study. So a case study, as I mentioned before, you have a large amount of information and then you have short questions. You could have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 short questions. It depends. Depends on the luck of the draw of the exam you take. Each question is scored individually, so each question is worth 1 point. The case study itself is not a question, so it's not worth anything. The individual questions in the case study are each worth 1 point, unless we will tell you in a question, in the case study, we can say this question is worth 4 points. And we'll tell you that. Or not, we won't tell you it's worth 4 points, but we'll tell you it's worth more than 1 point. Okay? Yes, sir.
With your case study questions, for example, does it repeat the case study as you move from question to question? Is that redisplayed, or is it a...
So the question is about the case study. How does the navigation work? And the way it works is that you have various buttons, and one button is for the question, and the other buttons are for the elements of the case study. So you can navigate from the question to the case study, and it's always available in the same screen UI. So it's very intuitive like that. Okay, so the learning resources. The first place you're going to go in order to get ready for your exam is the exam prep page. So the exam prep page is the page that lists all of the subjects that are covered in the exams and all the resources that will prepare you for that exam. Also from there you see the publication date, which track it belongs to, which languages it's available in if you want to take it in another language than English. So you will see here the list of objectives. These buckets of objective also have a percentage that is assigned to them. That percentage defines how much content is being covered for each one of those sections. Those will be expanded as well. Also, you have a date there. That date says the last time that that exam was refreshed. So if the exam is on a technology that is modified often, or for example, I deal a lot with Exchange and there's cumulative updates and releases and all of that that adds new functionality in the product. And then you get a question, you're like, well, is it before this update or after that update? Well, you have that information in the prep page. It tells you when the exam was last refreshed, and that will tell you which updates essentially that it's including. Those objectives that are listed below are broken down into sub-objectives. So for example here, planned desktop and device deployment. Well, I know that this exam is on Windows 10, and I know that it includes planned desktop and device deployment. But what does that really mean? Well, it breaks it down further and tell you exactly what that means so that you can validate your own knowledge to know whether or not you're ready to go and take this exam. Also, it tells you 10 to 15% of this exam is covered in this material. Okay? So if you're loading the importance of this section, how important it is to reference to everything else in the exam? Well, about 10% of your exam will be covering these types of topics. in terms of the prep resources that you're going to be able to use. So the first prep resource that we recommend is instructor-led training. So an MCT, a Microsoft certified trainer, is going to be in a physical room or in a virtual room, and he's going to teach you everything that you need to know about this technology. There's various Microsoft official courses that the Microsoft certified trainers are teaching, and that courseware focuses on the same objectives that are covered in the exam. So there is a mapping between things that are tested in the test and things that are taught in the course are all part of the same pool of objectives, so that we're teaching on the same subjects. Some exams do not have an official courseware, and some of those will have other resources, such as an edX course. And edX.org is an MOOC, a public free type of learning that is out there, that is online, that you can follow. There's some nominal fees that you may have to pay in order to receive a certificate or completion certificate out of it. But the edX courses are great also in terms of getting that good knowledge and that focuses on that exam. Or we also have MVA, Microsoft Virtual Academy. Now, this course, for example, doesn't have an MVA. Here, it was listed at the top of the page with a presenter picture that was actually teaching the MVA. Microsoft Virtual Academy, also built from Microsoft Learning, that will help you as a free online resource to prepare you for that exam. You also have a prep guide, which is a book that is essentially an equivalent of the official curriculum, but it's self-paced learning. So if you don't have the time or the resources to go and take a training with an instructor, the self-paced training book is also a great tool to use. So in the prep page of every single exam, you will have all of this information that is listed, and all of that will help you prepare for that exam. And then the last thing you're going to want to do is take a measure-up test. Again, those practice tests that we're offering here, you can purchase them and use them at work, at home. And those are a great way, before you go and take your exam, take the practice test. We know for sure that people who take practice tests are more likely to pass an exam than people who don't. Okay? So it's definitely a very good resource to use. Most exams today have a practice test. I ran a couple minutes over, so I had to rush a little bit at the end. But essentially, from Ignite, what I want you guys to take away is the fact that here we're offering you all the resources to help you in everything that I've been talking about today. The MCT ambassadors, they know everything that I'm talking about, and they'll be able to help you answer any of those questions as well. And they're all at Search Central, and I recommend you to go and take an exam while you're there. If you've got any questions, come and talk to me after. But right now, I have to end the section because I'm over time. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming. Thank you.